hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Okay, guys, I got my coffee. I got my little notes here, and I'm all cozied up and ready to give you an announcement I'm very excited for, which is Miss Marple is coming here to Books Like Whoa. So for those of you who are like, what is that? I don't care. What are you even talking about? Last year, from August of 2017 to August of 2018, I did a reading adventure project that I called Project Paro, and that was where I reread every book in the Paro oeuvre and most of the short stories. It's a little tricky, we'll talk about that. It gets a little tricky figuring out all of the short stories because there's so many different editions based on which country, whatever. Let's just say 98% of the Paro oeuvre I read in that 1 year cycle. And what I was doing was I was basically reading a Paro book every week, and I was doing some analysis of it in terms of looking at it through sort of the lens of social history and kind of how it was a book of its time. Also talking about Christie's idea of sort of morality and how that does or doesn't evolve over time. And really the reason I wanted to do that was because that was essentially what I'd kind of thought I might want to do for my PhD. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do my PhD, but it might be fun to sort of see if that would have been a project worth undertaking. And I think my conclusion from that was a resounding yes, that it would have been interesting to sort of talk about Christie's moral development in light of just kind of the crazy. She lived from, I think, 1890-ish to 1970-ish, and if you just think about what happened in British history and world history during that time and how much things changed, it's really just sort of an astonishing period for someone to have been alive during. So just seeing her reactions to the way things have changed in the society around her, it was just really interesting. And the reason that I use kind of her as a great example of this kind of analysis is because in a murder mystery, there is a lot of sort of explicit things in the text about right, wrong, good, bad, sort of the more venial aspects of our nature and sort of human vice. That's a huge part of what underlies mystery. And the whole kind of what you see isn't always the truth is sort of the theme writ large in mystery of your perception versus the reality. All of that lends itself really well to the kind of social history reading or sort of thinking about the author's religious ideas or moral ideas, whatever. It's a genre that lends itself really well to that. So it was all that to say, that was a really fun project. I met lots of fun people through it, lots of fellow Christie heads. I mean, I am a fucking novice compared to some of the people who are in my comments who just know every story, exactly when it was written, the history of it, all that. So it was really fun. I thought that was a fun way to kind of build some community in terms of finding other people who really like Agatha Christie, because she is my favorite author. So it was a great time, and the consistent request, all that to say, that I got during Project Paro was girl, when are you reading Marple? Because I personally am a Poirot girl. He is unquestionably, at least at this point in time, my favorite Christie detective. I definitely prefer him over Marple. There are a lot more Poirots than there are Marples, because I think he was more popular at the time. She also started writing Marple a little bit later. So I definitely personally prefer Poirot, and I was a little resistant at first to the idea of doing a Marple reread, because I just don't like her as much. But as I was thinking about it, I did realize, you haven't read Marple in a really long time. I started reading Agatha Christie probably when I was about 20, and I binged all of them sort of in a lot of them anyway, most of them in a sort of a 3-4 year period. And I haven't really reread Marple since then. I have done Poirot rereads since then. So my opinion of her was formed in my early 20s. I'm now in my early 30s. So I've definitely, kind of given her some breathing room, and I very well may kind of have a different perspective on Marple at this point. So I think it's interesting from that perspective. I also now have recently done that rereading of Paro. So I have very, kind of in recent memory, what books are being written around the same time. And because I did a video on every single one of them, I also have sort of a documentation of my reaction to Paro in around the same time period. So I think that in terms of kind of building a deeper intersection of my understanding of Christie and sort of where she was in terms of her thoughts about things and kind of the types of books she was interested in and some of the kind of overriding themes that take over at various points in her oeuvre, I think that it would be interesting to sort of have both both of those together. So in that respect, I also felt like this might be a project worth doing. And then finally, I just know a lot of people really like Marple, and I kind of would like to revisit her and understand more why somebody would prefer Marple to Paro, because I do think that they tend to have distinct types of mysteries that they get into. And there's definitely, in my Paro reread, I had moments where I was like, I didn't like this one as much, and I think some of it is because this really should have been a Marple book. And I think I would like for myself to be able to articulate more like what is sort of the hallmarks of a Marple book. I mean, like, there's some things that come to mind, obviously, in terms of like the small town, like St. Mary Mead and all that kind of, like, you know, it's definitely, I think, an even cozier flavor of Christie than Paro is. And actually, I would argue that really it's Marple who kind of launches cozies as we know them today, much more so than Paro does, even though kind of Christie in general is seen as pretty cozy. I think Marple is really like the coziest end of Christie in a lot of ways. So I kind of want to like put more meat on the bones of my own understanding of what a great Marple book looks like. And just, I don't know, I just think that it's time. Like if I did this with Paro, it's totally worth doing it with Marple. I actually think percentage-wise of the Marple oeuvre, I have more of them that I have not read than I did in Paro. So I also thought it would be interesting to have more kind of first reads of a Christie with you guys than I was able to have in Paro, because I do think I have maybe 4 or 5 Marples that I've not read. I might be wrong about that as we go through the list. I'll have to double check, but that's a bigger percentage of the Marple oeuvre. So I definitely think it'll be interesting to have more first reads in terms of the percentage of the project overall than I did for Project Paro. So all of that to say, this is my official announcement video for Mission Marple, which will be coming to you in January 2019. So let's get into some of the logistics of this, because I want to give you guys, I'm doing this early because I want to give you guys a chance, if you would like to read along, to kind of know what schedule I'm thinking about, and some of like kind of the logistical things if we want to make this more of a communal thing. If you don't feel like reading along, that's totally fine, but I at least wanted to give people the option. Okay, so let's start with the schedule. So I will have this I'll put information in the description box. So like, you can always refer there, and I will keep this for as long as it is applicable up as something that I will refer back to in terms of like, hey, go look at that video for all the information you need. So in terms of the schedule, we're going to start in mid-January of 2019, and I believe that this will go through early August of 2019. So the plan is, instead of reading a book a week, I'm going to read a book every other week. Some of this is because I think a lesson learned from Project Paro was doing it every week. As much as I enjoyed it, I think probably towards the end there were books that I was a little harsher on just because I was in like full Christie overload. So I want to space it out a little bit more, and because there's fewer of them, I feel less like, ugh, I gotta like keep it moving or else we're never gonna get through this kind of a thing. So so we're gonna start on the 18th of January with Murder at the Vicarage. Then on February 1st, there will be the 13 Problems, which is my favorite Marple, spoilers. I really like that one. Then on February 15th, we'll do The Body in the Library. On March 1st, 2019, we will do The Moving Finger. On March 15th, we will do A Murder is Announced. On March 29th, we will do They Do It with Mirrors. And then on April 12th, we will do A Pocket Full of Rye. So then I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do like a check-in at the end of April. And then starting back up in May, we'll have the 450 from Paddington on May 10th, I believe. May 24th will be The Mirror Cracked, also known as The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. On June 7th will be A Caribbean Mystery. On June 21st will be At Bertram's Hotel. On July 5th will be Nemesis. And then on July, I think that's 19th, is The Sleeping Murder, which is the last full novel. I then have planned for us to do on August the 2nd, I believe, of 2019, Miss Marple's Final Cases. I'll do some more investigation. I haven't taken the time to do that yet, but in terms of making sure that that's an applicable short story collection, I think it is. I think that is like the collection of all the 13 Problems Miss Marple short stories. I think that's what that book is, and in that case that would be the last one that we would have. So, and then I'll do a wrap-up video. So that's the schedule. So like you can see, we'll kind of go every other week through April. We'll take a little bit of a break, so they'll be kind of mid-April to mid-May. We won't be doing anything, and then in mid-May we'll pick back up and be going every other week through August. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of the schedule. In terms of something else I wanted to do with this for you guys, I think when I mentioned doing Mission Marple initially, I kind of did an informal poll, and it did seem like people were interested in having some kind of like forum discussion. So I think what I'm going to do is create a Goodreads group. I toyed with the idea of Voxer and Discord and a couple of other things, but I just think Goodreads is sort of like aside from YouTube, is the closest thing we have to a universal platform for BookTube. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll put the name of it on the screen here once I've created it, and then I'll put it in the description box below. And I think what I envision doing is essentially creating a thread for every book so that as people are reading along, you guys can kind of talk to each other. So I'll create it, I'll moderate it, whatever. It won't necessarily be me. I basically want to give people who are reading along an opportunity to have kind of discussions amongst ourselves about that book. And I think that will specifically be a place where we will get into full spoilers. So I think that will be a nice place to have fuller discussion. So, and if nobody ends up participating, that's totally fine. This is me honestly just trying to provide opportunities for Christie nerds to connect. And if you are participating in this read through, I wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity to connect with other people who might be doing that. So I will create that, and I'll have the information in the description box below. And then finally, just a reminder in terms of how I do my reviews, and I will remind you in every video. I feel like it is incumbent upon me to do that in case somebody just wanders into it. But kind of my approach to these is that I do a synopsis. I take people in the synopsis up roundabouts to where you find a body. So you get kind of a setup of what the book is about. And then I tend to do my reviews much more discussing thematically, or like I was talking about with the social history. So it's not I do my best to avoid spoilers for that specific book. That is my goal, is to not ruin the book for somebody who has not read it in my video. It's much more meant to be something that maybe entices people to give it a try, sets off discussions that are not super specifically grounded in the book, in terms of then this happened and here's what I thought about this one thing that happened. That's not really what these reviews tend to be. They're much more about, hey, this reminded me of this earlier book we read. We can see this theme that's developing around her interest in eugenics, basically, things like that. So that's going to continue to be my approach. I will, however, say that I think the additional caveat I'm going to give with these videos is that I do think I'm going to have an end section where I do get spoilery if I want to make any comparisons to the Paro canon, because at this point I've read them all, and I'm sure there are going to be times where I want to make comparisons, and if I feel like it's a comparison that would spoil the Paro book part of it, I think I'm going to go ahead and have a separate spoilery section kind of at the end of the review. So that's sort of my thought of how to handle spoilers for this go around. In general, they will still be spoiler free, and I will be very clear to signpost when we are in a spoiler or non-spoiler zone, but that is still kind of the intent, is that even if you've not read that specific book, that you can still watch the review and maybe get into sort of the thematic discussion of it, enjoy that, and hopefully I can persuade you to give Agatha Christie a try. That's really a lot of what these reviews are meant to do, is sort of hopefully there'll be people who are interested in Christie who might be encouraged to go ahead and pick it up. So yes, Mission Marple is coming. It is coming your way in, I guess, 6-ish weeks. So get ready, get Murder at the Vicarage out from the library, or make plans to acquire it or whatever. And I really hope people will read along. I really want this to just be, I'm hoping that we can have some communal participation, or at minimum, if you've already read these books, that this will be a reminder of what you enjoyed about them. I love Agatha Christie. I know it's not front list. I know it maybe not be the newest, hottest book or whatever, but I love Agatha Christie. She is a perennial bestseller. So I think there's a lot of people out there who really enjoy her, and hopefully this will be sort of a fun communal reread to the extent that people are interested in. I will be doing it regardless, and I'm excited to finish the Marple oeuvre, which I have not yet done. So I'm excited, looking forward to this. Get ready, January 18th, 2019, we will start with the Murder at the Vicarage. So I think that will do it for this little announcement video. This went longer than I thought it would. It's just the story of my life when it comes to YouTube videos. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I hope that you're having a great day. I will just see you soon for some murderous Marple-y fun. Bye!